Welcome back. It's Syracuse Sports. It's Brent Axe. It's you. And we're ready to talk Syracuse football today with one of the more passionate alums that you will find out there, not only in life, but certainly on social media. Damien Rhodes, former Syracuse running back, still a top 10 running back in terms of carries and touchdowns, left Syracuse as one of the all-time all-purpose running backs in Syracuse history. Local guy, stayed home, went to Syracuse, still in central New York. I said, man, I got to get Damien's thoughts on what he's seen so far. And I appreciate his perspective because he's honest. This is not a homer. This is not an alum that's only going to show you and highlight the good things. He will point out the bad, the good, everything in between, but he'll also educate you. Damien's been a football coach. He can really break down the X's and O's and is one of the better follows on social media in terms of former Syracuse players and just in general. So I said, you know what? Damien came across my timeline. Let's get him on the pod. Let's get him talking Syracuse football and about how alums are starting to come back around. Winning helps, certainly, but there was a lot of damage to be repaired there for whatever reasons. Previous administrations, Dino Babers included, just didn't embrace alums. That's not my opinion, by the way. We have heard from so many alums that have said they did not feel welcome around the program, and Fran Brown has gone out of his way to reverse that trend and to welcome them back into the fold. So you will hear Damien discuss that, including a phone call he had with Fran Brown, not only right when he took over as head coach of Syracuse football, but since. So that's coming up with Damien Rhodes. Your thoughts, your opinions, your questions and comments as Syracuse Sports Insiders have been incredible. It has been awesome to talk to you through the start of football season. Pre-game, in-game, after the game. Remember, only Syracuse Sports Insiders get their comments highlighted on this podcast. We don't take comments from Twitter. We don't take comments from social media. Only you get your comments highlighted here on this show. And sometimes you are on this show. Remember the pod we did a little bit back before the season started, the over-unders, and it was great to see so many of our Syracuse Sports Insiders here on the show. So why don't you become one today? All you got to do is text the word orange to 315-847-3895, and that gives you direct text message access to me. You can text me anytime. Your thoughts, opinions, questions, whatever's on your mind Syracuse sports-wise, I'll text you back. Of course, the group gets a text every day about the latest news and opinions and analysis that we have, and we would love for you to be a part of the Syracuse Sports Insider community. If you haven't come on board already, it's just $3.99 a month, less than $1 a week, and you can try it free, pardon me, for 2 weeks before you sign up for $3.99 a month. So come on by, tell your friends, tell your family. You know what? It's my birthday this week. The best birthday present you can give me is to become a Syracuse Sports Insider. Yeah, I just birthday guilted you into becoming a Syracuse Sports Insider. But hey, you get to try it free for 2 weeks. We would love for you to be a part of the community. Now, before we get to Damien Rhodes, guys, it amazes me how simple football can be sometimes, as I'm going to talk to Damien about. It's a complicated game. You got a game plan and matchups and all that stuff. I'm not trying to just blow past that. But when QB1's good, it solves so many of your problems. And it has been incredible to see Kyle McCord step in as QB1 for Syracuse football. As we speak, he leads the country in touchdowns. He's top 3 in the country in not only yardage that he's thrown for, which is 735 yards, but he's averaging 367 yards per game. That puts him in the top 3 in the country as well. And I understand it's only 2 games, but I'm going to show you a throw here, and I want to thank Dane Brugler of The Athletic, who, by the way, is going to join us on the pod next week, so I'm looking forward to that. But Dane cut this film, and with Mike McAllister as my witness, shout out to Mike. So Kyle McCord makes this throw, and for those of you watching on YouTube, I'm going to show you the throw in a second here, but as soon as he made it, I turned to Mike in the press box, and I said, damn, that's an NFL throw. And with no offense to any of the quarterbacks that have been here in recent years, they just don't make throws like this. Kyle McCord is the best pure pocket passer Syracuse has had since Ryan Nassib, and I think he's well on track to eclipse Ryan Nassib. McCord is a unique case study because he's only here for a year. Nassib took over in year 2 and got to build up certainly his reps and his numbers and his command of the offense, and eventually in 2012, left as one of the best pure passers Syracuse football has ever had. Syracuse has a real history of quarterbacks that can make plays with their feet. If that's Marvin Graves, if that's Donnie McPherson, if that's Donovan McNabb, right on through to Eric Dungy and Garrett Schrader. It almost became like a prerequisite that a Syracuse quarterback had to be mobile, right? But McCord is a constructed in the lab pocket quarterback. And when he made this throw, all right, so if you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to play the film for you here, courtesy of Dane Brugler of The Athletic. Takes the snap, gets the ball to Amari Hatcher, and essentially double coverage here, and knows where he's going the whole time, puts the ball, and this is my favorite view of it right here. Watch this. Look at that. The ball is exactly not only where it needs to be, but the only place it can be. One throw. Now, not that he hasn't made some other great throws as Syracuse quarterback sometimes, but it was that throw that showed he's different and showed, if it's Jeff Nixon in this case or whoever the offensive coordinator is, when you have a quarterback that's been there, done that, can read a defense, can take a snap, get rid of the ball that quickly. And yeah, Kyle McCord had a nice 15-yard gain in that Georgia Tech game, don't get me wrong, but he is not somebody that's going to consistently make plays with his feet as much as Fran Brown has said he wants to see Little League Kyle back out there doing that. That's Kyle McCord. That's what he brings to the offense. And as simple as it sounds, when you got a QB1 that can do that, it's just different. Kirk Herbstreit recognized Kyle McCord as one of his big performers of week 2. I believe he also had him there in week 1. RG3, Heisman winner, somebody who, frankly, ESPN should not have gotten rid of, and I thought that was a dumb move on their part, but we can have a conversation about that another time. On 3, this week ranked Kyle McCord as the highest impact transfer in college football. People are noticing. With Syracuse in a bye week, kind of sucks that Kyle won't get the opportunity to kind of keep that momentum going and stay in that conversation, but he has made everybody aware of what's going on. Even Ryan Day at Ohio State was asked about McCord this week. He's very diplomatic. He's very happy for him about what he's doing here at Syracuse. But when you got a QB1 that can throw the ball like that, it just makes a smidge of a difference, doesn't it? Let's see what Damien Rhodes thinks about that. Let's bring him in. The former Syracuse running back here on Syracuse Sports. So Damien Rhodes is here. He did not know that there would be a quiz, but that's where we're going to start off here. So I'm coming at you with a fastball, Damien. You ready for this?
All right, let's go.
Okay. Do you know where you still rank in Syracuse history in terms of number of carries and touchdowns? What do you think?
Maybe 10 on each.
You are correct. You are correct. You are still top 10 in each category, my friend. You are number 7 all-time, 545 carries, 24 touchdowns. That puts you 10th on the list. I'm particularly interested in that 545 number, man. You were a workhorse. They gave you the football when you were here at Syracuse. So take me back to when you came here. You're on the field as a freshman. And was that the plan all along? Like you're getting the ball and you're getting the ball a lot?
Well, it's interesting you say that 544 number because I don't know if you remember, but my sophomore year, I only played 2.5 games. I broke my ankle.
Yeah.
So who knows where a lot of those numbers would be.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the plan all along, just to play. I think about that, again, not playing my sophomore year, really. I guess when I look back at it now, it's a pretty good career considering really only played 3 years. And then obviously the last year was different. G-Rob's first year was different. I would have loved to still have Pasqualoni and them for that final year. I think that could have been something really special. But at the end of the day, I'm thankful and I'm blessed to even do what I did.
Yeah, you have been through a coaching change as a player, and you have lived here in Central New York and have seen the coaching changes here, which leads us to, of course, Fran Brown has come in and electrified the fan base. And it's one thing when it's an off season and you're
Right.
seeing the transfers and you're seeing the recruits and he's
Right.
showing the receipts you need to. He wins the off season, right?
Right.
And I realize we're only 2 games in, but to see some of the results we've already seen on the field, Damien, what are your early impressions of Fran Brown and Syracuse football now that we've actually seen some football?
Yeah, and that's the question I got all off season is, what's it going to be like? And you're right. The X's and O, or the Jimmy and Joe's part, seems like it's taking care of itself. They got the players, and obviously it starts with Kyle McCord, and we can't say enough good things about what he's done on the field already. But after that, he got receivers, he got DBs. I mean, look at Fidel Diggs right now. He's making play after play out there for us. So he's done all of that, winning the offseason. But until you actually line up and play, the Jimmy and Joes are great. But now let's see the X's and O's, and we've seen that offensively. Coach Nixon's done a great job offensively, and I think the defense is getting better. I feel like each second half they've played has been better than the first half, which is good. And each game to game they're getting better. So from a coaching standpoint, the transition, you want to see how is it going to look from week to week. I wish we weren't on a bye week this week, candidly. I wish we had one more game and then maybe a bye just to keep getting some more stuff on tape. So not for necessarily other people to see, but for ourselves to self-diagnose where we need to go.
Yeah, they made a big improvement from week 1 to week 2 in terms of tackling, on defense. You mentioned the adjustments that they made on the offensive side of the ball. And like Damien, I'm struck, frankly, sometimes by how simple football can be. And here's what I mean by that. It helps when QB1's pretty darn good. So to see McCord step in there in these first 2 weeks, and the example I'm going to use, he's made a lot of great throws so far, but there was one throw. I put the film out there on my social media for those that haven't seen it. Thanks to Dane Brugler from The Athletic who put this out there. He made one throw to Amari Hatcher, and he makes this throw. Exactly. And I turned to Mike McAllister sitting next to me in the press box. I'm like, dude, that's an NFL throw, right? And we just have nothing against any quarterback that's been here. We've seen those throws here and there. But Damien, to see that consistently from McCord so far, that's the difference. And when you have a quarterback that can do that, that gives the offensive coordinator a lot of options.
Oh my goodness. It's he's done that a few times already this year where what I've noticed about him, and it's different. And again, this is not a knock on like a Schrader or even like a Del Rio and other quarterbacks we've had in the last, X handful of years. But when you talk about seeing a difference, and this is one of the things I was really excited about Kyle coming in, is he's already seen everything. You gotta remember, he's played against everybody already. So he's seen what there is to see. He's learned under a CJ Stroud, I think he's doing pretty well at Houston.
Yeah, he's doing all right. Yeah.
I think he's doing all right. So he's learned behind some great quarterbacks, not to mention Ryan Day does a great job with quarterbacks at Ohio State. So he's got to learn that. So to come here, he's bringing something like that. And he's made those throws already. If people watch closer at home, it's not necessarily the completions or even sometimes the incompletions. It's when does he release the ball? The receiver's not out of their break yet. That's the stuff that you see in high-level NFL throws. The ball's already on the way before they even get into the window. Because if you already wait for them to get in the window, it's too late. Window's going to close. Especially at this level of football, P5 and higher. Windows close once you get into that window. Really, now it's P4. And that's what you've noticed is he's releasing those balls when they're supposed to be. And they're putting in places that only the receiver can get. And even the jump ball, like he had an incompletion, I think it was in the first quarter, down the right sideline, down the home sideline. It's 50-50 ball. He got inside the cover. There was 2-man.
Right.
The corner's running with him. Safety's trying to get over top, but he put it in a place that either the receiver catches it or it's out of bounds. And that's the kind of things that you've seen. And one of my favorite plays of this past weekend was the third down run where he spiked the ball. Probably could have got a personal foul, but you see that emotion and how much it means, and you see what it does to the rest of the team, because that was a big third down right there. Things were starting to get a little squirrely. You needed to convert that and keep the momentum going, and that's what you're seeing from him. He is staying flatline.
He's lucky he didn't get a penalty on that play, but it almost would have been worth it for him to show the emotion. That was actually
his first down first, so we just had to go back a little bit.
Exactly, and that was his longest run from scrimmage, 15 yards, and I think that was the doubt that people had. Now, last year he went through an ankle injury,
right?
So people were kind of wondering, and we've heard Fran throughout the offseason, Damien, say, I want to see Little League Kyle, and Little League Kyle was this kid that would run around and do that. So nobody's expecting him to do this. And this has been a theme at Syracuse, obviously, over the years. You can go right back to McNabb, right through to Eric Dungy and Garrett Schrader last year. Quarterbacks that make plays with their legs, right? That's not Kyle McCord, but he showed when I absolutely have to do it, I can do it. So you have all these aspects from the quarterback and an offensive coordinator who comes from the National Football League and can do all these things, right? And that's great. But you're a running back, and I want to get a running back perspective here because it's not like LeQuint Allen's been slacking out there, okay? Maybe the spotlight's shining a little brighter over here, but what have you seen from LeQuint and the role that he's going to play this season?
He's he's got some tough yards. He's doing a great job catching the ball out of the backfield, and I think that's in today's style of offense, it's everything. You're another extension of a receiver. I think that was something that I think Coach DeLeon, when I was playing, that was something we did a lot. I caught a lot of passes, and whether it was in the flat, whether it was design screens or something, we did a lot of that, and that's what you have to do just to create another distraction for the defense. And I think LeQuint's done a great job doing that. And as well as last week, I thought Nixon did a really good job coming in and running the ball as well to give him some relief. Because the one thing I can say, we were talking about that 544 number or 542, whatever it was. I remember my senior year, it was pretty much me every single series. And later that year, you start to feel a little bit. I mean, yes, you want that. I want that. I don't ever want to come out of the game, give me the ball every single play. I don't care. But if you can stay a little bit fresh, get a series here every 3-4 series, take a series off, it makes a big difference come fourth quarter now and also fourth quarter 4 games from now.
Seems there's some depth there. Will Nixon has gotten some carries. I've been obsessed with Yassine Willis because I just think this kid's going to be an amazing player. He's a tank. He's physical. He runs people over. Exactly. The practices I've been to, I'm just enamored by what he can be. But he's a freshman, and he's got to find his way. So that's a difference too, Damien. Look all around the field. There is depth, there is size, there is speed, and there's not a lot of weaknesses on this team. But specifically with the other running backs, following up on what you said, you want the ball, but you need some tread on the tires too. Sometimes you just need to kind of catch your breath. That is such an advantage for this team because there's depth at receiver and there's depth at running back.
There is, and that's one of the things I think that we've lacked the last few years. You think about, you lose a corner. Now we don't have a corner that can stop anybody. We would lose a defensive lineman, and now we can't get any pressure on. The fact that we're starting to build depth throughout the roster, that is how you continue to become a better and better team because people are fresher. You don't have to worry about the injury bug. I mean, Marlowe goes down. That's a huge injury. We stepped in pretty nicely, whereas maybe a year or two, we wouldn't have been able to do that. It would have been like, we're getting gashed up the middle, left and right. So to be able to have some of that depth in all positions, it's huge.
This doesn't happen without the offensive line. I feel like we got to give credit to them in a way, but the best compliment you can give an offensive line is when you're really not talking about them. They're not making penalties. They're just kind of doing their job. It helps when you've got 2 mammoth tackles on each side. But what I'm fascinated by, Damien, is in the transfer portal era we're in, and you're just bringing guys in, popping them in, and, it helps when you're 6'8", 340, and you can push people around. But still, there's got to be some cohesion on that offensive line. And again, it's early, and we'll see how this goes here. But has that just been the simple difference that you pop a couple big guys in there? It's going to help push some people around, as Fran likes to say. Big people push little people around.
Yeah, I mean, big guys are going to be able to do that regardless. And again, I think going back to offenses are more similar now than they may have been, years ago, where some teams were first getting into spread. Some teams were still traditional power football. Some teams were zone schemes. Some teams were Georgia Tech used to be the triple option stuff. So you still have all of those different. So now with, I think, more offenses almost becoming more similar, even if you come from a transfer portal, you're still having the same kind of schemes, whether you're running a gap scheme, a power scheme, a double block scheme. You're used to doing it because there's so much more variation in offense across football, across all levels, that I think it helps. Now, if you're just flat out a good player, learning scheme and being good and working together, that's not going to be hard part if you have good coaching and good scheme, which they have. And you're right. When you're not talking about the O-line, that's generally a good thing. because I don't see Kyle getting his jersey dirty much this year. Granted, he's playing on turf, but he's still not getting put in the ground, which is a great thing.
I think he's only been sacked twice so far, which is important.
When was the last time you could say that?
Yeah, exactly. When's the last time you can say that? And it's important. I mean, we saw the 15-yard run, but Kyle is the traditional pocket quarterback, which kind of, bucks against what's Syracuse. And like you said, the spread and all these different offenses that people in college football have leaned to. Kyle McCord is a engineered in a lab pocket quarterback. So you need to keep the little black pellets off his shoulder that you would get if you land on that dome turf.
Oh,
yeah,
I'd rather play on AstroTurf than play on that stuff, man.
Yeah, that's what I've heard about that. That's kind of one of the downfalls, I guess, of playing on that turf.
Yep.
Damien, you're very vocal on social media. That's what I love about you. You'll tell us what's on your mind, but I also love how you break down football. You educate people that are out there. You've been a very vocal presence out there, and that is something you're getting a lot of company in. Now, not that there haven't been other former players that have been active and have spoken out about what they've seen over the years, good, bad, and ugly, but everybody loves to, get on the bandwagon when things are going well here. But what's that been like in the text threads, in the alumni community, the former players, what you guys are saying to each other? Take me into that world a little bit.
It's, and I think I was always, pretty even honest when it was going wrong and not being the guy waiting for good things to come. So I think I've tried to be pretty, even back doing my thing when I was doing the show with Nico, I always try to keep it, let's not get too high, let's not get too low, let's not, everybody just calm down sometimes, because we take a step back and, look at the film. Sometimes it's not, football is a very hard game to win. You can lose a game like that, but to win a game, it's so much harder than people realize. Like basketball, it takes one guy. Sometimes he gets hot from behind 3-point line, he can take care of the game for the rest of the game. You can have one guy get hot, doesn't mean the other guy's going to catch the ball, doesn't mean the other guy's going to block, doesn't mean the guy who's open all the time, doesn't mean the quarterback can throw to him. So there's so many factors that have to come together that I think sometimes we have to give credit to just the other team and just sometimes how hard it is to win. So I think now it's been fun just because, we're winning, but it's not this that we're winning, it's how we're doing it. And I think a lot of it, yes, Fran is a huge part of it, but I've said his name a lot over the last 2 weeks. That guy, number 6, brings something different to this team that we have not had in a very long time. Schrader brought something different, but it was more from his ability to make plays happen, right? Like he could get out of a bad situation, all of a sudden go scramble for a crazy yard. He could still throw the ball, but one of the things I always said about Gareth is the windows were closed. The guy would be open, then he would throw it.
Right.
Kyle's throwing the ball into getting people open. And so it's been fun to talk about that, and it's fun just to watch them win, because the one thing that Syracuse gets, I think the city gets a lot of rap for, and you hear this conversations back and forth, right? Like, well, how come people don't come to the games? And people say, well, they don't win. Well, you're not going to get players if you don't come to the game. And chicken egg conversation, go back and forth till blue in the face, and it's exhausting. But I do deep down believe at its core that the city wants, because I think there's nothing better than when you walk into a football game and it's rocking and your team's winning. There's nothing better that carries the energy of a city than a football team or a university. Football is king in America, and it always will be. And so we can get ours prominent like it is now. I mean, I think we should have been in the top 25. Yes, BC beat one at FSU, but then they beat Duquesne. Who cares?
Yeah. Dwight Freeney said it when he was here this weekend. He's never heard a building louder than that dome when it is at its peak. And even with 7,000 less seats that it is now, that crowd can really still get into it.
Absolutely.
I've heard crowds at NIT basketball games that half filled, that make that place what it is. So the fans that are going there, that are engaged and can make that such a home field advantage, there's no question about that can happen. And look, you've lived here, and I call them the fair weather 10,000. Sometimes it just takes a little longer for people to get on board. And not everybody's even in the age of social media, when you get information fed to you constantly. Like, sometimes you just got to grab somebody on the shoulder and be like, no, you got to come over here and check this out. Right. Like, I know that there were a few lean years here, but no, they're good again. And things do move fast. Like, we're talking about Kyle McCord. he's only here for another 10, 11 games, and then he's gone. So I get that. It's hard to kind of process these things sometimes, but things are happening, man. And I think it'd be great if people would jump in and at least pay attention and not go by kind of older preconceived notions of what they're seeing, which I think, to go back to the alumni thing, Damien, look, there's no question that things were strained a little bit under Dino. For whatever reason, he just did not embrace the alumni as much as he should have, right? And look, that's over and that's done with. Fran has clearly established he wants you guys around. But that might take a little bit to repair for some players. Winning will cure all, and people will come back on board. But how have you seen that process, not only personally yourself, but maybe starting to see it repaired in other areas and other players you've talked to?
Yeah, I think one of the things you said, that it's not gonna happen immediately, because and it started a little bit before Dino. Like, there was some, like, you would go back and just not feel really welcomed, and that's tough when you put, you know, sweat and tears into a university.
Exactly.
And then a lot's like, what do you mean? Like, why am I being looked at? Like, why am I here? You know? So I think, but no, I mean, I remember the day after Fran got announced, I got a phone call from him and we talked. And it was a huge step, and he was very passionate about, like, we got to get this thing changed. And so it's nice. Like, I still text with Hicksy a lot, and so it's nice to feel that way. And you know, because you look at other big football program universities, you see their guys on the sideline all the time. They have a chance to get back, they rush to get back there. Whether they're playing in the league still, whether they were, or they're doing whatever, they will do whatever they can to get to the sideline. Because again, like, you know, like you mentioned, and like Dwight said, I've played in almost every big environment in college football there is. It's different inside that dome when you're playing in a good game and you're winning and the crowd knows that we need them. It is different. It is different than an SEC school. It is different than you know, a Florida State chop. It's different than an NFL game. Being inside the dome when you need a win and that crowd's there and that third down picks up and they start getting crazy, and all of a sudden you used to hear those keys jingle at times. That place it's a different kind of noise that you cannot prepare for. And it is definitely a 12th man advantage. And the city, the ones that are there, they totally get it, because again, it can be half filled. I mean, I remember playing a high school game there and there was only like 8,000 people, and it sounded like the place was full.
Right.
Because just the way the sound hits that dome and comes back down, it's freakish. And so, yeah, having that alumni is huge, and there's nothing like being inside that dome. It's to me, it's my favorite place I've ever played.
You mentioned you talked to Fran when he took over. If you don't mind sharing, what did you tell him when he said we got to get this thing going again? What was your message to Coach Brown? And maybe have you had the chance to talk to him since?
We've texted. I've texted him. It's just, you know, a lot of stuff that would just keep between I. But I think the part that we can all share is that we both have a passion for this university. He comes from that old school Northeast style football. I mean, when he talks about talking with Pasqualoni, I mean, now you're like talking to, like, Pasqualoni was like why I went to Syracuse, because he was like another father for me. So like when you start bringing up names like him and the deal he owns, you got my attention, because that's why I came here. Could have went wherever else I wanted, but I wanted to be for those two guys. So like he understands what like Northeast football is about, and you can see it when we play. Like the physicality that we're playing with on defense, like we're hitting people. Like, yeah, we miss some tackles. You're gonna miss tackles. It's football. Not to mention the people that have the ball on the other side, they're pretty good too. That's why they got to where they got to. But when we have a chance to deliver some hits, I mean, people are taking some shots, and that's. I mean, I remember some days playing in games was easier at Syracuse than practice, because we were the old school. We practiced full pads Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, shoulder pads Thursday, and we were hitting every single day until Friday. And you were like, finally, game day. I don't have to take as many snaps as I did in practice. I don't have to take all these drills as much. And it was like Saturday was like, let's go play ball now. So he's bringing that toughness, and you can see it, because I even think mentally tougher. Like this game this past weekend, I don't know if we win that game a couple years ago. I think it starts turning, and we just don't have the mental, physical toughness to finish that thing out.
Damien, I was really struck by how Fran, you know, psychology is part of this thing, right? Fran sees some comments from Brent Key, the Georgia Tech head coach, which honestly, if you watch that, 100 football coaches have said that before, and 100 will say it more going forward, right? We have to be physical to win this football game, right? But the way Fran kind of took that and said, well, wait a minute, are you saying we're not physical? And how he challenged the team. And he played that clip and he just – now this is coming off the Ohio game, which game one, as you know, the leap between game one and game two is huge.
It's like, everything.
You just don't get exactly. You don't get preseason, and like you almost have to take that with a grain of salt.
I mean, look at how many teams struggled in week one already. Big teams. Oregon, they could barely get past North Dakota State or whoever they played. They struggled in week one, and they're still struggling.
And it happens in the NFL too, because
all the time
nobody plays in the preseason, so you know. But one thing Syracuse clearly had to do was improve their physicality. They missed like 19 tackles against Ohio, but they had film and like, okay, we could bear down on this. So it's not like he didn't have motivation anyway to tell these guys to lock down. But what's that like as a player? I mean, you guys, you said it. You hit every day, and you get in these rhythms. Fran has talked about the monotony of football, and sometimes you got to break it up and give somebody just that extra edge to go out there and push somebody around. What'd you think of Fran's strategy and kind of taking an opposing coach's words and throwing some fuel on the fire?
Look, I don't know a great athlete or a great player that didn't take something they could to give them that extra chip. And if you're not, then you're not really trying to find that edge to do what you have to do. Like, yes, you're self-motivated already. You want to go play, you're going to be physical. But if you're not trying to find an extra edge in any way you can, then you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing to get yourself prepared. Now, I think it's funny that, you look at the Georgia Tech fans online, they're all like, oh, Fran wasn't actually taking it personal from what, like, on Coach Key. Like, that wasn't what he was doing. But he was taking something that he knew he could get his team's attention with, because you said, like in week one, the physicality wasn't where it needed to be. And so he found something that he could take, as any great coach, or, Michael Jordan Last Dance, and I took that personal. You see what I mean? Right. You have to do it, though. And so I have no issue with it. And the only reason Georgia Tech fans got mad about it is because we beat them physically in our house, like we were supposed to. And frankly, I think the game should have been bigger gap-wise than we let it be. I think we started playing a little too much prevent, letting it get down the field to get the score closer. But from a physicality standpoint, I thought we tore them up physically.
What do you think about, like, football is a week-by-week thing, and every week and every matchup is different, and I understand that. But you noted it earlier. I agree with you. I feel like that bye week, like they get this momentum. They went out there. They pushed Georgia Tech around. Yeah. Everybody's feeling great. Now it's like, you got to wait a little bit longer. That when they get back on the field, it's going to be a Friday night. I think people will get ramped up again for that Stanford game. But momentum can go either way, right? It can you look up and the next thing you know, you've won 5 in a row, or unfortunately it can go the other way and you can find yourself in a rut and not get out of it. So I agree with you. I think that momentum that they created from the Georgia Tech game, like ideally you probably don't want to sit out right now. So what do you think the approach will be there to kind of pick up on that and keep that intensity going? I know they'll be mining every single thing that Stanford says, maybe to get an edge. And I did see one guy in my YouTube comments say that, those Stanford guys are smarter than Syracuse. So maybe they can get that, blow that up and get them ramped up here. But I'm fascinated by that, Damien, and you've been through it and you game plan and you've been a coach, and the ups and downs of every week and how it tells a different story. Yet you want to try and bottle up what's going well and keep it going.
Momentum's easier to lose than it is to gain. And it leaves you a lot quicker than it is to get it back. So how do you keep it going this week? That is partly going through practice, going through that tape for the first 2 weeks, deep diving into yourselves, scheming, continuing to build on what you did great already, continuing to sharpen that, and then use what we're not doing well on and drill that down. Like, look, yes, we feel good about ourselves. We're 2-0. Everyone's talking about us. But we just did this, look at this, and that's where Coach Fran and staff are going to do a great job probably, looking at all the stuff that we're not doing, because there's still plays to be made out there. There's still errors that are happening. I guarantee the film is not being graded out at 100% per player every single snap. So there's plenty to get after. And, I never had a bye that early. I think we had one, I think the earliest bye I had was maybe my freshman year. I think we would have one after maybe 3 games. I think we went BYU on Thursday, back to like North Carolina Saturday, then like Rhode Island, then we had a bye before we went to Auburn. And I remember like the first bye week, it was like it's a strange week, like, because you don't get that really in high school. So when you get a bye week, you kind of just like it does slow stuff down, and it's just a matter of like, how do you go about it? Like, what is your goal? Are we trying to make sure that we're fresh? But later in the year, it's about staying fresh, because it's catching your breath, right? Like if you had the 6 games before a bye, you need to take a break. Like let's get everybody their legs back. Let's get in some extra treatments and workout. We'll still do some kind of film and stuff like that to stay sharp, but let's get fresh. But after 2 games, it's like I mean, if I was coaching, one of these days would have been a full-on hitting day. Like we got to keep this sharpness going before we come back after the weekend.
Something you just said made me think to ask this, because you had some amazing road trips in your time. We went to BYU, Auburn, Virginia Tech, and some of these were just road trips you would go on routinely being in the Big East, but you had some unique places to go. And you look at the current landscape of college football, Damien, and Cal, Stanford, and SMU are in the ACC, and Oregon and Washington are in the Big Ten, and all these things that guys like us that grew up a certain way with football are like, what in the world's going on here? But I guess you can look at it the other way. When would Syracuse ever have the opportunity to go to Cal or go to Dallas to play SMU or whatever the case may be? So I guess you kind of spin it that way and say they will gain some experiences here, not just football, by the way, a lot of the sports, that maybe they wouldn't see it otherwise and experience it otherwise, as opposed to every year we're going to Virginia Tech, we're going to BC, we're going to Pitt, like places you've been there and done that.
Yeah, you know, as like you said, like I'm like a historian, traditionalist football. Like I'm gonna miss. I think of the Rose Bowl, which is like my favorite bowl games. I'm gonna miss the Big Ten versus the Pac-12. Like that was what I grew up with on New Year's Day, watching that. And so like missing that, that's gonna be tough, right? From like a purist nostalgia standpoint. And when you actually think about now what the whole landscape and the schedule looks like, we're going to get blessed with great college football every single weekend. There's no more of those like, oh, you're going to play like this little, throwing this little game late in the year before a big game to try to give yourself like an off week. Like, no, every single week, you turn that TV on at 12 o'clock, it's loaded with football. Like part of me wishes I lived on the West Coast. I could wake up at 9 and just start watching every single game, because some of those games that are going to happen on the West Coast aren't going to go until like 9 o'clock. And I'm getting old now, and I can't stay up like I used to anymore.
That's right.
So it's like, no, but you get these great games every single weekend. And as a consumer, like, yeah, you know, there's a group of us that are nostalgic that we just talked about. We're going to miss it. But for the totality of college football, like, starting this coming week and the week after, we are loaded every single week with ball games. Like there's a full slate of games. Not every single team will have that, but from a total package, we are going to be loaded with football games. And I mean, that only helps us.
I recently went to San Diego, and I thought about that when I was there. I'm like, you know what? I could deal with rolling out of bed 9 o'clock and just watching football all day. And then when football's over there, I can go to the beach for a few hours, right? As opposed to here, like with that Stanford game, that like, can I stay up that late to watch? I mean, I have to, and we'll watch. It will be the adrenaline flows, but then, like, yeah, like the other night, my wife and I, she's like, "Hey, you think we should watch the debate?" And I'm like, "Okay, yeah, sure." And she's like, "Well, what time is it?" I'm like, "It's on at 9 o'clock." She's like, "Who's going to stay up and watch that?" I'm like, "Man, we are so old."
It's a school night.
We are exactly. It's a school night. She's a teacher, like, so. Yeah, that's the trade-off there for all that. But
I mean, yeah, like, look, we're going to UNLV in a few weeks. Like, we're going out to Vegas on a Friday. I think it's a Friday night. I think actually
we got to take a nap to be able to stay up and watch.
But that's awesome for the team and the program,
that's the trade-off,
because it's also those areas that Coach Fran and his team and his staff go to recruit in. Like now you're there, you can start tapping into these places and these markets. Like we're going to be in Dallas. Obviously, you've already seen that Fran can recruit, and our whole staff can. So now we're in the Dallas area. Too much talent's in Dallas, and now we can start tapping into that. We go to SMU one year and have a good showing. Now all of a sudden it's like, oh, Syracuse come out here. It's a different thing. So it's going to help us from a recruiting standpoint, because we're tapping into all these different markets that we generally wouldn't have had access to because we really had no reason to ever be there.
That's exactly it. Damien, it's great to catch up. It's always good to see you.
It's been a blast, man.
Good stuff. We'll definitely get you on again down the road, but thanks for hanging with us today on Syracuse Sports, my friend.
All right, it's been a blast. Love everybody on Syracuse. Keep it up.
Thanks again to Damien Rhodes. Fantastic to get the perspective from the former Syracuse running back on current issues with Syracuse football, and a little walk down memory lane as well. Just a reminder that as you heard in the middle of the podcast here, and you're going to hear the full song to close out the podcast, we are featuring your original music here on Syracuse Sports. This one was submitted. Shout out to Mike V, Syracuse Sports Insider, for a terrific band called Checks and X's. And their song that we're highlighting here called You Could Do Better. You could have your music highlighted here on Syracuse Sports. All the information is in the show notes on how you can submit your music to me. Now, it has to be your original music or somebody that you know that's in a band that's willing to have their music played. It'd be great, like if you, hey, Brent, I heard that Bruce Springsteen guy's pretty good. Well, we can't play Bruce Springsteen. Like, we can't play recorded music and official music, if you will, like that. But we can play your original music. So send it to me. And we'll get all the details on how we can line it up here and play it on Syracuse Sports, and we're happy to do it. So please submit your original music to us so we can make it a part of the program. Keep submitting your great questions, comments, opinions, thoughts, and delicious recipes. Whatever you want to send as a Syracuse Sports Insider. The community is growing. The community is getting all the pregame, in-game, post-game stuff from Syracuse football games, the information during the week, the unique analysis that we provide you, and just, hey, shooting the breeze about Syracuse sports, whatever's on your mind. That's what the Syracuse Sports Insider text line is for. Sign up today by texting the word orange to 315-847-3895. You can find a link on syracuse.com as well to sign up. It's just $3.99 a month. It's something you could try out free for 2 weeks. Text me. I text you. You get information directly. If I have breaking news, you're going to get it first, and unique analysis sent right to your phone that you're just not going to find anywhere else. So come on by. Be a part of the Syracuse Sports Insider community, including getting your comments highlighted here on Syracuse Sports, exclusively at our Syracuse football postgame shows as well. That's it for this edition of Syracuse Sports. Thanks for hanging with us, guys. Don't forget to subscribe on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Whenever there's a new episode of Syracuse Sports, which we also let you know on the text as a Syracuse Sports Insider, you will get it automatically, and you can listen on demand when you want. Checks and X's. Why don't you guys take us out?